I am thrilled about today's discussion topic. And the main reason I get excited about any time we talk about reinventing anything, especially in the senior space. But but when we're talking about reinventing the senior center, that gets me pretty excited because there's so many times I'll refer somebody, say, why don't you give a senior center a call for your mom, or why don't you attend a senior center? And it's one of those times when I'm caught with that response that I get every day of the week. Oh, I'm not ready for that yet, or I'm not going to a senior center. Well, folks, today we got a panel that is going to show you how a senior centers can really be done right. And uh, I am super excited to welcome our panel of guests today. We've got Peter Thompson, who is the former executive director of this innovative senior center. We got Tim Tessler, who's with the architecture firm that helped put this amazing design that you're going to see together. And we've got Rennie Bond, who is a member of the senior center. She goes to the programming, this, that, and the other, but she also volunteers and she was involved in the committee to design this amazing space. So welcome all of you. Before we dive, I know you got a great PowerPoint, but before we dive in and join and start this discussion, let's get to know the three of you a little bit better. Peter, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Tim and Rennie, for joining us today. I'm Peter Thompson, and as Steve mentioned, I was the executive director of the center, also known as the Center at Belvedere, formerly known as the Senior Center. I was the director there for 24 years until the end of last year, and was very involved in taking a well-established and successful senior center to a much broader mission and vision that we'll talk about more today.
I love it. And Tim, you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Uh, yeah, Tim Tessier. I'm a principal at Bushman Dreyfus Architects. I was part of a team of at least 4 or 5 people in our office who worked with Peter and Rennie and many other folks in the stakeholder groups to design the center. And a little bit about Bushman Dreyfus. We've been around for 30 plus years. We are proud to say we do a lot of work in our community with nonprofits, actually a variety of community centers for a variety of people and of different abilities and ages. So we're happy to have had this experience with Peter and continue to communicate with the center.
I love it. And last but not least, Rennie, I am so thrilled that we have you on the panel. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I am a newbie here to webinars, so bear with me. But I was given a little extra time to introduce myself because I am the center in many ways. I moved here in 2007 or 2006. I didn't know anyone. I was not interested in any senior activities, but I heard there was hiking in the mountains, and that turned me on. I joined the group hiking, and as I came into the center, I heard music. There were bands, and I was a self-taught player, and I thought maybe I could do this. So that was the beginning of a long list of programs. I have been in bands, I've been in a chorus, I take ballet, I have done OLLI lectures and heard a number of lectures. I have designed and led bereavement groups and death cafes, and most recently, a group called Reconnect, which is for people who are not mentally ill, but who've really been down about the world now, and particularly after the COVID and climate change, et cetera. So I know the center very well. I also have traveled with our agency. I want to mention this because it's the one place I know you can travel locally in the state or internationally where they pick you up at the door of the center. And when you're finished, you're dropped back there. It's no getting to Dulles or anything.
Oh,
I am,
wow.
by the way, going to Egypt in October with this group, which will be fun. I
Cool.
also am on the council, which is the group of leaders of programs. And we talk about issues we share with the staff, and then that gets shared with the board. So we're all acting interactionally. Um, but what brings me to this is I was on the board and the executive committee for 2 terms. And those were the times when we were designing and building this building. I was mostly involved in membership, how we did the membership, and also in interior design. I'm going to talk about that a little bit better, but we really, as a member, I and other volunteers really were part of this process. And the last thing is I am an ambassador. I give tours to the center. I have given community talks, and I greet people as they come in. So I'm at the center almost every day. I love it. It feels like home, but it also feels like a place where I can still make a contribution to the world.
And this is amazing. And Rennie, you know, every now and then when you're telling, so you meet somebody in the community and you tell them about, you know, the great programs there. Do you ever get that? Oh, I'm not ready for that response that I'm talking about. No, even though it's such an innovative center, we gotta change that. And that's
Steve, Steve, I know, and I was one of those people when I
yeah.
moved here. So we have to talk about it, and that's what I do. I share with as many people as I can.
I love it. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duck behind the curtain and I'm going to let you all take it away. And folks, if you have questions at any point during this discussion, just use chat or Q&A and type them in, and we'll make sure to address the questions at the end. And and if I see anything that is sort of a hot button, I may jump in and interrupt y'all. But I'm super excited to learn about this center.
Thank you, Steve. And we're going to have Captain Tim navigate our slideshows. So for those attending, just note that we're going to be doing a lot of next through the next 45 minutes to get through our presentation. But I applaud all of you in your busy lives to come out and learn more about what's happening in our community and what Steve does through positive aging, because it's really important to continue to learn more about others. If the center leadership had not encouraged me as executive director to get involved in the national scene through the National Institute of Senior Centers and other things, we probably would still be where we were 25 years ago. It's really important to continue to learn and see what other visions are out there, and do the best you can to kind of take what you might be able to apply to your community. So thank you for being here. This is a picture of the new center Belvedere. It actually opened in 2020, so it's not that new anymore. But this is when we opened in 2020, the front view as you approach the building. Next. Just a little bit about the center. We were founded in 1960. We are the longest continually operating senior center in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We were the first to achieve national accreditation. We are based in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is right in the center of the state, about 2 hours south of Washington, about an hour west of Richmond. Our community is about 150,000 residents in the city and the surrounding county. And we are a nonprofit. We get no government funding. We're one of the few in the country that get no government, no federal, state, or municipal funding, and never have. We did get capital investments to build this building from our municipalities, but that was the one time we'd gotten any public funding. And like our country, Charlottesville Albemarle is growing older, and Virginia is growing older at a faster rate than the rest of this country. And Charlottesville Albemarle leads the way in being an older population, both for folks like me who have lived here most of my adult life and choose to stay here, and people who relocate here like Rennie and scores of others. So this gives you demographic data from 2000 to 2020, over a doubling of our senior population just in less than a generation is pretty telling about the how acute it is in our community. Next. This is a Google Earth view that shows the little circle up in the upper middle there is where the center at Belvedere is located. Location was very critical to picking a new site. It's about 2.5 miles from downtown, which is the cultural heart of Charlottesville, Albemarle, but no longer really the demographic or population center. The population center is much more in that northern urban ring. You can see a little bit to the left on the screen there that shows a lot of where the population and the retail and everything is. We moved only about a mile from the former center, which was important to us. We didn't want to disenfranchise folks. About a mile from Fashion Square, which is kind of the retail hub of our community. And we are on the public bus line number 11, coming up that green line that squiggles all the way back down to downtown Charlottesville. Next. So really importantly, we were a traditional senior center founded again in 1960. We grew and grew again. We moved a couple times to different rented sites. We built our own facility in 1991 in the northern urban ring when community was starting to grow there, and built our own senior center there, and were there for about a generation before we built the center, or known as the Center of Belvedere. And we had looked a lot, again, looking at the national scene about what was going on, looking at demographics, hearing the comments that Rennie and Steve mentioned about, we literally have people saying you wouldn't catch me dead at a senior center. We heard that a lot anecdotally, and the data showed a lot of older adults, and not just 50, 60, 65-year-olds, but 75 and 85 and 90-plus-year-olds who didn't see a senior community center as relevant to them. And we are a college town. The University of Virginia is here, and we find, and again, the data backs this up, that people who choose to live in a college town, particularly older adults, often do so because they want to live in a multi-generational community. They're not moving to the villages in Florida or other places that obviously meet some people's needs because they're very popular and well populated. But folks who live in Charlottesville, Albemarle typically are doing it in no small part because it's a university community and they want to engage in the wider community. So we really wanted to change the view and the vision and the image of what a senior community center could be. We did drop the word senior from our name. It's still our corporate name, but we changed to the Center at Belvedere and typically just refer to ourselves as the center to help folks. And the name change did make a big difference for a lot of people. The location and what we're going to talk about certainly changed even more. And we wanted to create something that still focused on people age 50 and better. That is our articles of incorporation, our bylaws, our mission, and our purpose for over 60 years now. We did not want to leave that. We wanted to simply expand on it. Again, a lot of older adults wanted to be at a place that they might see people of all ages, and we wanted a more multi-generational place, and to be it both age friendly, and we'll talk, and you'll see a lot of how the design is very age friendly, but also ageless. It does not feel like a senior center, and we'll talk a little more about that. And a place that is really aesthetically pleasing, a place that you want to go just to be. Senior centers, including ours, traditionally were places some folks came to come to a program and then would leave. You come to a program and you leave. And we want to be a place that people's like, I'm sitting home alone and I don't want to be. I want to just come and hang out, not necessarily come to a program, just kind of see and be seen. And if you're not familiar with the concept of the third place, I really strongly encourage you to look into Ray Oldenburg's work. Ray Oldenburg celebrated the third place. And the concept is the first place is your home. Our second place traditionally is where we work. And the third place is where we celebrate community, whether it be a coffee shop, a pub, a bookstore, a park, a community center, a Y, whatever it may be, and how throughout history we've relied on those, and then in America we grew away from those a lot in the great suburban sprawl and zoning and all kinds of issues that really kind of zoned us out and grew out of those places. So we really wanted to be that third place, a place that people just came to be. And this shows this is actually looking back at the front door from the back into what we call our atrium. And you can see it's a very open space with a lot of different little public seating, both cafe seating for our cafe, soft seating, chairs that can move around so people can do it to meet their needs. And we can have different programs in that atrium that you'll see later. Next. And, too often senior community centers are in places that nobody else wants. They're in a retail strip that is underutilized, and so you can get a good rent. And literally this happened in Albemarle County down in one of the communities south of town, that the school was not meeting the needs of the kids. So they built a new elementary school, and they gave the old falling down elementary school to the seniors to use. That too typically is what happens. We really need to set a vision that this is an important part of our community beyond just a traditional senior center. So this program, for example, shows actually, this is a dress rehearsal for something called the Chamber Music Festival, which goes on each September in Charlottesville. It's very popular chamber music. They bring in musicians from around the country, and it's one of the examples of how the community uses our space for people to experience what a dress rehearsal is like, and for the Chamber Music Festival to promote what it does to our users. Next. One of the things I also want to emphasize is how important it has been to engage our stakeholders in building our design build team right at the start. We organized our building committee. We engaged folks like Rennie and other members, community partners from some of our arts groups, our local OLLI, if you're not familiar with, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, that provides college quality classes to older adults without the exams and the book requirements and the tests and the papers you have to write. We engage them in trying to design our classrooms. And really designing quality space. This is actually an art gallery opening during COVID, as you can see. The gentleman in the middle in the blue jeans and the white shirt and the little beret is one of our more accomplished artists in the community, and he did a show of his art here. This is actually a corridor outside of the auditorium, but Bushman Dreyfus did a remarkable job of making these spaces that are corridors also art galleries or other things. So there's no space that is not, it's just thoroughfare. It also creates more of this community center and public space feel. And he did an art gallery talk, as our artists typically do. The art rotates every 2 months in both the downstairs and upstairs galleries. And the quality design really that we really want to drive home today is how important it is that once you have a vision, design aligns with vision and mission. You cannot disentangle them. And when you're designing something new or retrofitting a senior community center, having a quality design team such as Bushman Dreyfus, and one, as Tim mentioned, that is used to working with broad stakeholder groups, not a single developer, a single homeowner, but we selected Bushman Dreyfus in part because they've done a lot of community projects working with public entities, nonprofits, and they were so good at authentically listening to our stakeholders, not just having listening sessions and going, yeah, whatever, but actually putting those input into design. And Tim is usually too shy to mention it, so I do want to mention that Bushman Dreyfus won the American Institute of Architects Merit Award for the design of this building, both because it is aesthetically pleasing but also user-friendly, and because it is both age-friendly and ageless. Next, I mentioned about getting our potential partners involved and creating the initial building committee. This is our upstairs. We actually did market research that emphasis when we were thinking about does our community need a bigger center and what does it need? And one of the things they came up with was the importance of having a wide variety of social spaces. So this is upstairs overlooking the atrium. It's a little quieter than the downstairs, and you'll constantly see people here, these little, couple or friends moving these chairs around to have little conversations before or after programs, or listening to the music that might be coming up from the stage downstairs below. Next. And then I think we're going to turn it over to Tim, unless Rennie had anything to add before we give it to Tim on the guiding principles.
Nope, I'll add some more later.
All right, I'll jump in. Thanks, Peter, for the background. It's very helpful. And I will say, every time I say senior center, I cringe because Peter and his group taught us that this is a community center, not a senior center. And so that's really at the heart of everything we talk about today. I'm going to speak a bit about the design, how to maintain design integrity and a high bar, really, for the project. And Peter and the center, in their wisdom at the very outset, enlisted some guiding principles as a touchstone where when we got into budget issues or had to make some hard decisions, we would go back to that document, back to these principles, and stay committed to the decisions that had been made at the very beginning. Doesn't mean you can always build everything you want, but We made provisions and plans for how to possibly do things in the future or add things later. So I'm just going to step through these guiding principles really quickly. These really came before any real design work had been pushed in terms of what you see as the current finished product of the center. So principle number one is the center was committed to having a contemporary, non-institutional, open building with lots of views through into classrooms. A lot of what goes on here is being seen and seeing others and having this sense of community that Peter's talking about. It's really the architecture, the way you design the spaces that supports that idea. I guess I'll throw in, we had our very first design meeting as a group with the design building committee, the center's building committee, and our office had been searching for some design precedent images. And boy, it was tough at the time to find some compelling ones. And that's not to say that people making the best use possible of the spaces they have is a bad thing. It's actually happens all the time. But we found one center out in Utah that had a giant atrium full of glass, well lit, daylight. We put that image up on the screen, and everybody was so excited, saying, "This is what we want. This is what we need." And so it was just a home run that we were all heading down a path to a very open and welcoming sort of modern center. Second principle, that this is a universal design building. This is for people of all ages, all abilities, all walks of life. We intentionally designed exercise studios. This whole fitness wing of the building has sprung floors, which provides a nice cushioned and softer surface for active adults who are doing a whole variety of activities. That's the image you see in the upper left. We also intentionally designed all stairwells. So we have 2 egress stairwells, but this main stair as well. All stairs were designed to a specification where the rise is limited at 6 inches, just to facilitate walking up and down. We have handrails at 3 levels for folks of different heights, and there's an inlaid strip in those stairs, which as you're looking down the run, you can sort of differentiate where the next drop in the riser happens. You also notice that there's a landing, a very generous landing at that sort of viewing platform halfway up the stair, which really gives you a chance to take a break if you need it. So these were just a few of the features that we've built into the design of the center. Third principle, environmentally conscious design, and not only design, but the process of getting to the final building. So no, we don't have a barnyard at the center, but we did enlist the help of some goats to clear a bunch of invasives out of the hillside that leads down to the pond. As opposed to using herbicides and other harmful chemicals that would leach into the water supply, we were able to enjoy the company of the goats as they chewed up those invasives. And then really, I want to give a shout out to Trevor, who is the building manager. We had a solar array put on the roof. We actually were able to capitalize on a power purchase agreement, which allows nonprofits to, for really no cost, have a solar array on their roof. The only cost to the center was a slight increase in capacity for the roof load. And I'm pleased to say that Trevor was able to finagle the settings and work out the system so that last summer, the center was at net zero for 3 months, for May, June, and July, produced all the power they consumed on site, which was fantastic. We also looked at safety and security for the center. This is a big one. The welcome desk is there. It does provide multiple levels of interaction. If someone's in a wheelchair, there are multiple counters, not just one, that serve at that level. But also, the welcome desk is really at the center of the center. And so this is a sort of repeating theme, but being able to find your way back to where you came from as you come out of a program room, and being able to orient yourself is actually a safety issue. Just being sure that people aren't disoriented is a real issue in these centers. Also, the slide on the bottom left just highlights some of the site choices that we made. There are no curbs at all in the parking lot, so you can move directly from your car into a walking path that leads you up to the building. And I guess another component of that entry facade is just the covered porch, which keeps inclement weather off of people as they're being dropped off, and it just provides a nice, safe way to come in to the building. Feel free to jump in, Rennie and Peter. I'm just rolling. Technologically enabled. So this is a big one as you future-proof or try to future-proof your building. What do you install when it comes to technology? What are technologies and systems you can choose that don't age out so quickly? We mentioned the solar system and Trevor's ability to dial that in. That was actually a computerized system that enabled the user to tailor it to their uses. And so I think that's just a point here, is that Trevor made a point of learning the system and being able to operate it. And that was mastering that was important. We're showing the theater up above. We used LED lighting everywhere. That was really important, is to minimize energy use and just be set up for what was coming in the future. And so that was important to everybody. And then the last point here is really paying attention to flexibility and how you can adapt over time. And a lot of this was driven by the spaces that the center occupied in their previous location. It was a building, if you wanted to modify and move walls, I think they were load bearing. It was a wood framed building. There wasn't really an easy way to renovate the space without really affecting load-bearing partitions and walls. And so we opted for a steel framed building with big spans. And the idea was the shell of the building is what it is, but if at some point in the future walls needed to move, we needed to expand certain rooms because programming of those spaces required it. We just wanted to have the ability to modify what we built and not get locked into one way of using the center. And then really from a site-wide perspective, we evaluated the site. We made the dream plan, complete with a gymnasium and a track and all kinds of things. And at some point we realized, well, we can't build it all. And so there's just this little note here about a phase 2 building site, which is going to serve well in the future at some point. Maybe it's not a gym or track. There may be some other components and program spaces that get built there, but we wanted to leave room for adding more space in the future. And actually, it really serves as a great community lawn at the present moment. So that works really well. So as I'll take the next few moments to just zoom in on the site and the building itself and the specific design choices that were made before we really dug deep into the design of this center. Peter and team enlisted the help of Lifespan Design. Doug and Ellen Gallows, they are experts in the field, and before we really launched the design team, including structural engineers, lighting designers, acousticians, the whole group, we wanted everyone to get an orientation on what we were doing here. It was very important that this center was universally designed, that it didn't just meet accessibility codes. We wanted to exceed them. And certain examples would be, for example, all doors swinging out so no one experiences an entrapment issue in any bathrooms. That's not a building code requirement. That's just something we needed to do to ensure safety of all of the users. And really, that was so we met as a group the entire design team. This is not typical for most projects. You don't typically bring your structural engineer in at the very, very beginning when you're talking about what the design goals are. But this was important to this project. And we had a kickoff meeting with all of our consultants, all of the design consultants, and with the gallows. And we stepped through a bunch of design guidelines that helped shape the center as you see it today. And we'll start out with looking at the site. This slide is here because I was digging through some design drawings we did, and boy, we did a bunch. And we really studied the heck out of this site. And this is only for, sort of a little later in the process. But I just want to highlight, when you're working with the site plan for this type of community center, there's so many issues to really be thinking about. And a big one is just the entry sequence and how you bring someone in and have them orient really quickly and easily without making a lot of choices in their car. And so the signaling of the entry with the canopy, the distance to drop off is important to give people time to move down the line and be able to drop off. And the flow through the parking lot so that you don't have dead ends or one-way issues. Also was very important. And I'll mention, we were also designing for the Charlottesville Transit buses. That was a big piece of that entry program that we were focused on. And yeah, I guess one point to make here as you look at these bubble diagrams, color diagrams, is part of the issue as we looked at this particular site is there were so many great things to take advantage of. The view over the pond to the right, the woods ringing at least two sides of the site. We had choices to make about what were we going to face onto the public road. And I'm really pleased to say that I feel like that the success was that we ended up with, and I'll just skip to this slide. So rooms such as the back of house stage area, the deliveries to the door, and the Centera Health Center, which, those rooms don't need big expansive views. We were able to sort of locate those program elements along the road, which made sense so that the rest of the center could open out to the rest of the site. And that was a really successful move. And then I'll just back up briefly here. So this is the overview of the site plan. Peter drilled into the team that parking was going to be such an issue. The existing center at the time was just so overflowed. People would come to the center and have to turn around and go home, which is certainly not the message that you want to send to people to welcome them. We had a pond, a stormwater pond, opportunities for terraces, like we mentioned, the solar roof. And then really a focus of the center was this atrium space. So you see these red arrows to bring people in from the parking area and then back out to the outdoor lawns. And then really this slide highlights, and these were early sketches we did for some fundraising opportunities. And really it speaks to the mission of the center to welcome people, to help them orient themselves, to see and be seen. And usually we like to track a big idea on any project. What's the main idea? What's the big design move? And for this building, it's the center of the building. It's the atrium space, the views to the outdoors, the daylight. And so I tried to overlay this slide with the final product, which is a close approximation. But those ideas carried through, and I'm glad to say that we were able to execute such a great central space for the building. I'm checking my watch and realizing I need to move quickly. So I'm going to quickly touch on these plans and then hand it over to Peter and Rennie so that they can give a sort of photographic tour of the center. So here's the ground floor plan. The parking lot is the bottom of the page. So this beige rectangle is the entry portico. And really the note there is that there's a door into this blue space, which is the health clinic. And then really what you do is you come into this big atrium. The welcome desk is this swooped shape here. There's a travel center and a cafe and the lounge. And so really the idea is you're coming in and experiencing the heart of the center right away and getting your getting oriented to what's happening. The beige trapezoid on the back is the rear terrace with its own canopy, and that has views out over the pond and gardens, and outdoor programs take place on the backside of the building. The green bar that you see here is the auditorium, so it's very accessible from the atrium. It's nearby. The welcome desk can oversee coming and going. And then we have fitness studios. The fitness wing are the items in yellow at the other end of the building. And really the thing to note is that as soon as you step out of a program space like the auditorium, you're on this main path, this main street, as we like to think about it, on your way back to the center of the center. And so this would be true of the fitness wing as well. And then moving to the second floor, so you come up the grand stair in the center, or you could use these egress stairways, and you land on a bridge here in the center, overlooking the atrium. The green spaces are program rooms. So this wing of the building to the right is the Lifelong Learning Center. We had a lounge in this orange triangle here. And really, this is just, if you look at the orange space, it's just to reiterate the fact that when people come and go from classrooms, there are places to gather and meet with each other and hang out, and really experience the building, the public spaces as a community. And that's really just at the core of everything that we were focused on here. And then the yellow zone to the left would be the admin wing. And just a really quick note, the nearby mall that Peter referenced, lots of folks go there to walk in inclement weather, to walk the hallways. We had this idea in the center here that we could make a walking path sort of through these central orange hallways, down the stair, down through the ground floor and back up. And so there's a nice walking circuit you could take through the building. And with that, I'm going to pass the visual tour, photographic tour over to Peter and Rennie.
Thank you, Tim. A couple of good questions. I want to make sure we try to have time for those. One quick one. We do have 2 elevators as well. We often forget to mention that. They're right there off the main floor. So this is, we're going to show you some of the pictures a little bit more than we have already. This is coming off the road right to the main entry, and that is the Centera Family Medicine Clinic there that we'll touch on some more. That was talked about next. This is, again, is the entry that we showed earlier. Next, front of the building. The solar array that Tim mentioned, I put in the chat that we actually have 60% of our electricity is thanks to the solar energy, so it's the environmentally right thing to do and much cheaper than our state power supply. Next. This shows the Centera, which is a regional healthcare system with a big presence in the Charlottesville area. That is a rental opportunity. It is a family medicine clinic. They pay full market rent. It's over $100,000 a year for the center. And we chose them in part because they wanted to put a family medicine. Anybody can come there. They have experts in geriatrics, but you can come in there at any age. You can bring your kids there. And it does have its own entry, which was particularly critical in COVID, which hit just as we opened. But there is also an entry into the center directly into the back hallway as well. But that's been a great way to be a partner, to generate earned income. Centera is a well-known, well-respected healthcare partner for us. Next. One of our other key partners is Greenberries. They are a franchise. They actually have some all over the world. They're based here in Charlottesville. And it's very well-respected, well-known. And we wanted to have this is not a rental. We actually own the franchise. It's a subsidiary of Senior Center Incorporated. It's the Central Cafe Incorporated. And we picked having a Greenberries rather than having the Central Cafe ourselves, because it literally does help, because we've got a sign out there that says Greenberries, and people will walk in and say, I saw a Greenberry sign and I assumed that I could just come in and have a cup of coffee or tea. And it's like, you assume correctly. Next. And it shows Greenberries does not have its own entry. You walk directly in, as Tim mentioned, And Greenberry's does not have a separate entry. It does not have doors. You walk in and you're just in this big open cafe, which is very much the third place feel for things. It has beer and wine, so you can have that during our evening activities or any time of day if you want. And that's been a big way to, again, do a mixed use partnership with our friend at Greenberry's. Next. And this is a picture of our food truck. Tim mentioned the outdoors. And the indoor auditorium. We have concerts every other Thursday at least, and then throughout the year, wide variety from soul bands to chamber music to big bands to acoustical trios and singer-songwriters. And we'll typically have food trucks out front, which again are a very ageless kind of cool thing that you may not see at a typical senior community center. Next. And there was actually just a question about service dogs. And Service Dogs of Virginia, an independent nonprofit, took it upon themselves and actually uses our space. We welcome dogs of all kinds. I'll let Rennie talk about that more, but the Service Dogs of Virginia actually uses our center as training ground for their service dogs. We didn't invite them. They didn't ask. They just came. They knew it was an open space, and they use it all the time, and they're more than welcome. And I'm going to give it over to Rennie to talk about this in the next few slides.
Okay, next then. This again is the welcome desk that you see when you come in. Next. I guess I should say a little bit more about the dogs because we went by that quickly. I have two. They love coming here. They meet other dogs, and the people who don't have dogs get to meet them. So that's really terrific. This again is the interior going up the stairs. You can see the lower risers. Next. Down in the auditorium, we have one of the two grand pianos, and people come in and practice or play there for events. And so you get the sense of music that you can hear throughout the building often. Next. These are our medical students down below. We have UVA medical students come and learn how to live with seniors, and some of them participate in some of the songs, the karaoke we do, and get to know who we are, and we get to know who they are. It's great in promoting bedside manner, I think. This is a choral group up here in the auditorium too. And this is just one of those groups that come and play and entertain people at various times during the day. Next. This is you can see the outside. Behind me would be where Greenberry's is, and that's a table, obviously, for sitting, and it's a bulletin board. We have several of them with community notices, with events, etc. Over on the left, our downstairs was a gala that we used to have in the old center, and we may again have here. And they are just circulating at an evening event. And upstairs, is that part of that too, Peter? Up on the left?
On the left is, yes, part of that's the art gallery on the second floor, yes.
Oh, the art, yeah, it's hard to see the art, but yes, going back, you can see the art. So next. This is the travel agency. I'm trying to orient myself. There's the atrium out there, and there's a little lobby here. And we have, as I mentioned before, a travel agency that is a professional travel agent and many volunteers, and they are very, very successful. Next. That's that little just sitting room where people come. There are often computers on the desk just to talk or be here. Next. The auditorium set up for a piano, obviously, performance. Next. This is we have catering, we have rental options, and there are weddings, there are bar mitzvahs, there are sweet 16 parties, and just generally the rooms can be rented when they are not being used by the center, and a caterer will just come in. And this is a picture of what one of them might look like. I think we can fit 250 tables back there, or 200 people seated
Seats
back there. Yeah, it's better. Okay, thanks. Next. That looks like one of the dramas that we have. It's on the stage,
It's one
or
of our,
people getting up and dancing to the music.
yeah, it's one of our Thursdays around 5 concerts that are
Right.
free and open to all ages.
Right. Okay. Next, I think that may have been it. We go into the fitness room, and there are many, many different kinds of fitness programs. I think about 9 or 10 dance programs. There are balance programs. I do ballet. This is one of the rooms that we work in. The floors are great. There's great views and a lot of fun. Next, another program. They must be doing, I'm not sure, some balance thing perhaps, but another fitness program in one of our larger fitness um, rooms. Next. This is the ACAC donated all these machines that were really picked as being more useful for people 50 and up. And it's in one of the rooms. We have a full-time fitness instructor who educates people on how to take care of or how to program what they're what they can do in different machines so that they get the kind of exercise that they need. Next. This is looking on from the top of the stairs or the middle of the stairs. And this is a tour during, it was post-COVID, I guess, but just, and you can look over there and see the outside, the deck, and then the hill that goes down to the pond. Next. Okay, this is one of the art galleries. As Peter said, we have 2, and they change every 6 months. And people come and obviously look at them, and there are tables around again where people can sit. They're very often on the below the paintings. There will be people doing puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, and they just keep finishing them. So it's a multi-use place, and you can see this whole area going back to the library is often people are congregating and sitting or seeing art. Next. This is the administrative area. That's one of our program directors who was just obviously on the phone, but the executive offices are on the right, other offices on the left, and there are conference rooms. There one at the very end where AARP actually comes and does taxes for people. It is open to the public, and really it's encouraged for the staff to interact with the membership and for us all to get to know each other and to be a team. Okay, next. That's Bobby, our volunteer director, and we have a great volunteer program, not only in helping run the center, but if you want to do something that we don't have a program for, or like working with children or animals, Bobby can arrange volunteer positions for you. So those are just 2 of the volunteers working on something. Okay, next. This looks like the card room or the game room, they call it. It's divisible into 2 parts. Men's poker is often taking up one, but there are a number of bridge programs. There are canasta, there's mahjong. And actually at the center, I did want to mention that if you don't see something that you like and that you think would work here, go talk to the program director. I've done it 3 times and been able to, they often say, well, you do it, and that's okay. But the center is very flexible that way.
Rennie, I think you hit the mute button.
And while she's unmuting, we're running short on time, so we need to run through these last few and make sure we try to get to 3 questions.
All right. So, yeah, should I just go in and say what's worked now?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So, you've seen all that we've done. And these are just various pictures of what we are continue to do. So what we looked at is what's worked in this for us. And what I've come up with is a couple things. First, the overall presentation. People come in and they are literally open mouthed. They say, it's gorgeous. I didn't expect this. It's not like an institution for old people, because it's welcoming, it's light, it's airy, and there's just an inviting atmosphere. It's easy to get around, as Tim was saying. You can't get lost. There are, there's attention to the needs of the aging. Tim mentioned the stairs. I work in choosing the furniture. We are all size, all shapes, all levels of ability and disability, and we needed furniture that was durable, comfortable, attractive. And so what we did was have furniture makers bring furniture into the building, and they'd seat it there, and we'd invite our members to go and sit in the different chairs, and that's how we selected the furniture. Pretty good. The informal conversation groups, and there are some now where you can just come and chat with other people who want to chat. I think overall it's a feel-good place. And the other thing, and it's been mentioned before, but I want to stress the community-orientedness of it. Many programs are free of charge. The center is open to all. We've mentioned the coffee shop, the travel agency, the family medical practice, the art galleries, the music. There are flexible rooms in the diagram that Tim showed you that will fit various sizes, and they can be oriented furnishing wise to do a number of different things. So, for instance, I do a group that is fairly intimate, and it feels good to be circular and near each other, but I walk into a room that's set up as a classroom with maybe for 40 people and tables and chairs. Within 5 to 10 minutes, literally, I can change myself that whole room around to have an intimate setting. So it's very flexible and useful that way. And we've talked about the rental options. And the other thing I want to add, the last thing, is we have membership options so that nobody has to be turned away. We have scholarships, but we also have different levels of membership depending on what kind of participation you do in the center. So I think that's what that's what really has worked well. Just a couple things about what hasn't worked well. Maybe the parking, but that's a mixed blessing, because if you have a lot of people who come, you're going to have a lot of cars. So we're working on that. Let's see, the other thing, the hearing, it's sometimes difficult, and the hearing loops we have are only one way from the speaker to the audience and not interactional. We're looking at that. And I think there was one other thing I had that I wanted to mention. Oh, and just the kitchen. It's great for the caterers, but we would like to have a bigger kitchen so that there could be programs on cooking for people eating alone, etc. But that's about all I can mention of what didn't work. You have more to add to that, Peter?
No, I think we only have 2 minutes. So Tim and Rennie, with your permission, I think maybe I'll just make one kind of closing point and one story. And we may not fully get to the questions, but I hope that what we've helped you hear is the vitality and importance of quality design. I think when Tim was talking, people heard the complexity of what a really good quality architect brings to the table, and thinking about the site selection, the site location, where to put the building, how to engage age-friendly design, community design, how you use the space, how you engage stakeholders, all that. I can't emphasize enough, and I hope that message came clear, that a quality architect is really vital to this project. And then I'll do want to close with a story. In the summer of 2020, we were supposed to open in April 2020. We all know what happened at that time. That summer, our local Boys and Girls Club was looking for locations to have learning centers for families who could not do Zoom education at home for any number of reasons. And the local Boys and Girls Club their 40-ish-year-old director and a couple of their 30-something lieutenants came to look at our site because we were underutilizing our classrooms in the heart of COVID. And they looked at it, they walked all around, they were amazed at what they saw. It didn't end up working out for reasons that are not relevant to the design. But one of the young women who had never been to the center, knew nothing about what we did, after the tour looked at their CEO, James, and said, wow, when we build our next Boys and Girls Club, wouldn't it be great just to use this design? This would be a great Boys and Girls Club. And it resonated that while it's very friendly for older adults, that people like that saw it could be used for all ages. So maybe we just need to turn it over to Steve to wrap us up.
Well, and actually, what I would say is, if the three of you would like to hang on for a few more minutes, we could get through some of these questions.
Sure.
This is recorded, folks, so if you have to jump off, by all means, come back and refer to the recording at the end, and you can hear your questions asked or what have you. So let me. Elva's got a few questions here. Her first question was, please say more what you mean by mixed use. Um, uh,
Yeah, I think we, again, the two biggest examples are the Centera Family Medicine Clinic. And again, picking partners aligned with the vision. Instead of having a geriatric clinic, having a clinic that was open to the entire family, including
oh,
older adults.
and here, I want to make sure that we address Laura's question is, what does the center do to reach people of all backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses? I would love to see a center like this in my own community, but I wonder if it may only target more affluent populations.
Yeah, I can start with that. I mean, that could be another whole hour,
Yeah,
Steve,
no, I
easily.
agree. Yeah.
But it is a really important consideration, and it's one that we did take into account. Um, we do have fees. That question was answered in chat. Because without government funding, we have to raise dollars somehow. 60% comes from private philanthropy, but about 20% comes from dues. We do have scholarships, though. It's an honor system. All somebody has to do is say, I have financial barriers. Can I be a member? You just fill out the form, and it's a completely confidential and completely honor system. And about 15% of center members are on scholarship, which is about the same as the poverty line in Charlottesville, Albemarle. That's one thing we do. Uh, we work a lot with other partners in addition to Centera and Greenberries. A lot of the partners we work with, such as the African American Heritage Center, the gentleman that I mentioned that had the art display, who I'm having a middle-aged moment and forgetting his name right now, is an African American, lifelong resident of the community, and his artwork is very much on the African American experience. We did an art display with the local historical society that was done by a local woman, folk artist, Frances Brand, who did images of Charlottesville Albemarle first, so the first woman mayor, the first African American sheriff down, policeman down with town, all those types of folks. We had that display up for 2 months that brought in a wide variety of folks. One of the local schools, the Burley School, it was historically African American school before integration. Is now a public elementary school, but they have a very active booster club, the Burley Bears. We brought them in to have some of their social events. The Chamber of Commerce has a Black Business Alliance. We've partnered with that group. I could, again, fill another hour about the types of folks that we have brought in to help deliver programming. We've certainly been mindful of trying to have a diversity on our professional team. Particularly our program on our front-facing staff. We have worked hard to make sure more of our, particularly fitness instructors, as well as other group leaders, are people of color. Gosh, Rennie, can you? And then we've had this huge diversity speaker series, including one right this year on systemic racism, that has brought in hundreds of people when we did it virtually during COVID, and 100 people or so for free lectures, bringing in speakers to talk about. In Charlottesville, Albemarle, we're part of the South. We're part of America. We've got a very ugly history in a lot of ways, and we've been facing that and bringing a lot of people in to talk about the different ways that Charlottesville has been racist, and what we need to do to rebuild bridges or build bridges that were never built to begin with. Rennie, other thoughts on?
Yeah, I would just add on that, when you walk into the center now, as opposed to be all white, middle class, you have every color, every race and ethnicity, all intermingling. And it's a very exciting and wonderful experience.
And man, this is fantastic. Like you said, we could talk for an hour on a bunch of these different little rabbit holes. But folks, I see a few questions related to, wow, how can I get one of these in my community? This, that, and the other. Now, here's one of the reasons why I like this topic of discussion and seeing this beautiful work of art and community gathering in space is that your community or your business may or may not be able to execute on the level that the center has done, but share this recording with your colleagues, with the leadership in your town. It may serve as a source of inspiration. And the other thing, I see one familiar face who ran the older adults program in the town that I live, Karen Bruchet. And in Reston, Virginia, we never had a senior center, but the older adults programs were being housed within a community center. And for the person that was asking about Arlington, Virginia, or different areas, instead of sort of building something new like this, or maybe while you're trying to get something built new, just teaming up with the community center and starting to think creatively, and Osher Lifelong Learning, so many different things that you guys shared today. I also love the third place. I had never heard that term. And while you all were talking, I linked up with a speaker who can talk to us on the third place, which I think will be a wonderful program for us.
Steve, let me amplify your point about what other communities can do. Not everybody needs this or can replicate this. But one of the things that I really find interesting about the center is we have had visitors from all over the country and as far away as Calgary who have come to visit our center. And we have welcomed people, particularly all over the region, where folks who, seniors, like once outside of Richmond, I can't remember which county, where the seniors wanted to do something more. They came aware of what the center was about. They toured it. And then they asked, like, could we bring our elected officials, because they're a municipal center and they need the municipality to fund it. They said, can we bring our elected officials come to see this? It's like, of course, you don't need permission for one thing, but we'll be happy to give you a tour, because Rennie mentioned jaws dropping when you come in. There is nothing like, 2D is one thing, but you come and experience the center and see what a difference, again, this quality design makes, and how energizing the people is, and the diversity of people, age, race, socioeconomic can use it. And an elected official goes, wow, I want this in my community.
Mm-hmm.
Communities don't want to be upstaged by somebody else. Part of why we were able to get this happen in our community, Charlottesville is very proud of who we are, and we want to be. We pride ourselves on being a world-class community and punching above our weight. Like, this is part of what a world-class community needs. So I encourage people to come and visit the center, talk to the current staff, or Steve can connect you with me or Rennie, and we'd be happy to, and Tim even to kind of go and give you a tour to encourage and inspire other people, or talk to Tim at Bushman Dreyfus. They, I'm not shy about how much. I know I've said it a couple times already, but any architect could have designed a senior community center, but world-class architects design.
Let me add one more thing. A number of my peers, my friends, call it not the senior center, but the Center for Healthy Aging, or the Center for Active Aging, and that kind of fits better to what we do.
Yeah. What's pretty cool on that note, Elva said that in Arlington, Texas, they have a program called Ambassadors for Aging Well, and the city named it Active without the E at the end. So, that's the thing. It's like the design is amazing and the space, but what I'm also impressed by is your use of language, your inclusivity, the committees that are planning the events, and it all goes hand in hand. But folks, if you're out there and you're running a program, or you got a senior living community or a business, there's just so many little threads here that we can take back and implement that can really make a huge difference.
Steve, if I might just address the one question about, is this just kind of an elitist endeavor for affluent communities? it's easy to just get to the finished product here and say how amazing it is, but this was years in the making. I think our project number was from 2009, and it started before that. And I just want to say one thing, which is you have to take baby steps to get to this point at the end. Peter knows as well. Early planning studies, some quick studies can get you started. It can be overwhelming to think you have to have all the resources to get here. But really, I hope the message that comes through in today's talk is with intelligent and purposeful design decisions and well-considered choices, you can create something that generates a lot of buzz in your community. You may not be able to build everything you want, the dream project, but it certainly with good design and the energy to fundraise, there were a lot of years of fundraising here, you can get there. And so I think what may seem impossible is really a possibility with some good design principles and you raising the bar, especially in the community, and getting buy-in from community members is really important.
I love it. Man, this has been an amazing discussion. It doesn't surprise me that it went long. That's totally okay. I really appreciate Peter and Tom answering questions. Folks, if you asked a question and we didn't verbally respond to it, more than likely it'll be typed in, but I'll have all that on the recording link later this afternoon. I'm just delighted that we've had the opportunity to showcase this. And what I'm really excited about is a year from now, I want some of you in the audience or people listening to this to say, that project in Charlottesville that I listened to inspired us to do X, Y, or Z. That would be wonderful. Any final words from the three of you, or do you think we did a good job of covering it all?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope it helped inspire people. Again, it was our board in getting me out into the community and visiting other senior community centers that helped inspire us to set even a higher bar. And there's also a great Daniel Burnham quote that you can look up about make no little plans. They make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably themselves will not be realized. Set a big, hairy, ambitious goal and go get it.
I love it. This is great. All right, y'all. Well, thanks so much. We'll see you at the next one, and I'll work on getting this recording and the resources up, as well as that wonderful last quote that we ended things on. And thanks so much, y'all.